Welcome to the ISB show. I'm your host, Sahil, here with Rahi and Roy. Guys, we haven't talked about this region for a little while, but we are back to Southeast Asia. Our Indonesian friends are back, but now we got some other teams from Southeast Asia that we haven't spoken about before because the ASEAN Championship kicked off match day one, and there's a lot to talk about.
A lot to talk about. A lot to talk about, Roy. I only wish that this tournament was also a cooking or food competition, Roy, because
can you
this
imagine?
would be, can you imagine? This is the best food producing region, in my opinion, in the entire world. Could you imagine? Maybe we should do that when we watch these games. Bring together all the cuisines. Could you imagine?
I went to an Indonesian restaurant last week, and I had the most glorious meal. Oh, what did I eat? It's a restaurant called Borneo Eatery.
Yeah.
And I had this wonderful curry-ish soup with shrimp, with fish cakes, with egg noodles. It was super spicy. I almost cried. I suffered for the next 2 days, miserably suffered because of the spice, because it was spice, man.
It
was
worth it.
next level. I ate a lot of Mexican food because my
Would
wife
you say it was
spicy.
too spicy? You suffered.
It wasn't too spicy in the moment, but I did suffer after.
Got you. Okay.
Speaking of
That's my
suffering, okay, Indonesia kicked off their first match of the tournament against Myanmar, and it wasn't the easiest match. Okay, so just for those out there to level set, of course, the European contingent is not here for this tournament, right? So there's basically two of the players that we've come to love. I would include Arhan in there too, maybe. So three of the players that we're like used to seeing, which is Marcelino Ferdinand and Rafael Struijk. But Rahi, this was a different look for the Indonesian team, and it wasn't easy to get this victory.
It wasn't. It's not a team that's played together, right, in this format. They may take some time to grow into this tournament. It wasn't a pretty game. It wasn't a great performance. And ultimately, Roy, they relied on the thing that's been a deadly weapon for them of recent days. It's that long throw-in, man. That thing is dangerous. It again leads to the goal. I believe it was off a long throw once again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes you need that, Roy. Sometimes you need these little differences, and that was the difference. They were the dominant team, but they didn't create enough chances, in my opinion.
Yeah, they were the better team. I hesitate to use the word dominant team. I didn't feel either team was overly dominant, but they were the better team. Indonesia was the team that deserved to win this game. We got to see our boy Marcelino. And we also learned, boys, that Indonesia has two world-class players. Did you know this? Did you guys know this?
Marcelino himself, yeah.
Marcelino, obviously, but they have Ronaldo on their team. And they have Kaká, who seems to have gone back in time because he's 17 years old now. He started at forward. Kaká and Ronaldo on the same Indonesian team. This is incredible.
It's
big.
big.
Incredible.
That's big.
Wild stuff. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that Indonesia has never won this tournament. That's wild to me to think that.
It is wild. It is really wild. The record-holding team here in this tournament is, of course, Thailand. They've won the majority of these titles. They start off in a big way as well. I'm sure we'll get to that in a second. But ultimately, in my opinion, for Indonesia, it's still the first game. They get a good win. That's all that matters. But you'd like to see an improved performance going into the next game.
100%. And this is how I just want to make a comment on the Indonesian fans, the Garuda fans.
Yes,
they
I was going to mention this.
Have sold out every single home game in this Asian Cup. Every single home game is already sold out. Keep in mind, none of their main players have been released. It's arguably a second-rate tournament, and they're selling out every single game. What an incredible fan base. What incredible fortune for these players to have that kind of support, because you don't see this in any part of the world where it's a second-rate tournament, a team that isn't calling up 80-90% of their players, 95% of their players, and they sell out every single game well in advance. That is wild. That shows that this is truly a top soccer nation. It's unbelievable, and they deserve the success they've been having.
did you notice at the end, throughout the second half, it was interesting because this game wasn't at home.
Yeah.
And yet, throughout the second half, you could hear the almost non-stop chant, Indonesia. It was literally audible throughout the entire second half, which to me, when you're in the opponent's stadium, is wild.
Yeah.
Incredible support.
Unbelievable. And the thing is, it's a bunch. The average age, I think, on the team is 20 or something like that, which is actually incredible. Like they thought it was going to be under 23 players or something. Most of them are 20. So
No, Kakai is 17, dude.
Yeah.
He's a 17-year-old kid. He's a little kid. It's unbelievable.
It's quite wild. All right. So before we kind of finish off on Indonesia, you need to see improvement, right, guys? Next match for these players.
Yeah, I thought Stroik came in and played well when he was subbed in. Maybe he gets the start in the next game. We know what he can do for the first team. Let's see. Still early days, Joy. Still early days in this tournament.
Yeah,
It's early. I do want to see Marcelino step up and be a leader on this squad. I want to see Stroik do the same. I want to see this team rise to the level that Indonesian fans have come to expect of this national team, which is warrior mentality, warrior performance, just heart on your sleeve, heart bursting out of your chest kind of performance. I want to see that element. We saw hints of it today, but it wasn't the same that we've grown accustomed to.
Yeah, and if Indonesia is going to win this tournament, we're going to need to see a lot of that. Indonesian fans, let us know your thoughts about how you felt the team performed. Okay, moving on. Thailand and Vietnam, two teams that have had, success in this tournament. Thailand being the most successful team. Wasn't much of a, I think, we didn't see a lot because the opponents, right? Laos and Timor-Leste. And I don't know. Can you take anything away from these matches?
Yeah, they're two different opponents. I think Thailand in their game, clearly the superior team. But hey, scoring 10 goals is always an achievement, no matter who it's against. And it should be applauded, the ability to score that many goals. I thought Vietnam and Laos was a little bit more interesting. Laos had their moments. Of course, the late penalty, getting themselves back in the game on the board. Vietnam were the better side. Difficult to evaluate both these teams considering who they've played. But certainly Thailand's impressive, and we know what they do in this tournament, Roy. Time and time again, they seem to win this tournament.
Yeah, an interesting thing. I'll have to look player by player, but this Thai team, normally they call up players that are playing in the Thai league, but this time around, the Thai league players or the teams were not obliged to release the players. And the reason is they now have games during this window, whereas normally they don't. And they have games in this window because there were a bunch of postponed matches or something. Mm-hmm. So they're not even getting all their Thai league players. They're certainly not getting their other stars. So this is a Thai team that isn't as full as it could be, even considering it's outside the FIFA window, because they're not getting every single player playing in the Thai league that should be there.
Yeah, Vietnam, on the other hand, I think a majority of their players are there. They're probably the most complete squad. And there was messages in the Vietnam press that says, okay, we're the favorite for this tournament now. I don't know. Would you guys agree with that?
On roster, yes, they should be the favorite. As yet, again, it's too early to tell. This is a tournament where things are going to start to take shape as we see the second and third round of games when some of these teams start to play each other. Much more interesting. I thought Vietnam were the dominant side in their game. There's no doubt. But they did allow Laos into the game late. I mean, still a comfortable victory. But at times towards the end, I thought they conceded a little bit of possession. Let's see. Vietnam certainly the on-paper favorite, you'd have to say. But Indonesia, always considering where they are now and the coach they have and the spirit they have, you have to put them in among favorites as well.
Okay. I want to talk about this last match because this was probably the most impressive performance, and it was Cambodia. So Cambodian fans, let us hear you because this was impressive, guys. This was an impressive match, and you talked about the support from the Indonesian fans. That stadium was loud.
That stadium was rocking, and it's a big draw for a Cambodia team that has a player who's now Cambodian and playing well for them, huh?
Koulibaly.
Roy, so we've talked about this. Yeah. We've talked about this, Roy, and how much a player who's played in your domestic league who may not be from the country can change the team, and it's a big deal.
It's a huge deal, and we're seeing this. It's becoming more and more common. especially across the Asian region. We've seen Morocco do it to an effect that's turned them from an 100 ranked team to 10, and they're playing brilliantly, making World Cup semifinals. We're seeing Indonesia do it, where they've gone from being a second-rate team in the region to being arguably probably going to make the World Cup if things continue to go well. So dual nationals matter. Getting the dual nationals to play for the country, especially if they're from a country like Ghana or Senegal, who have very strong national teams, from Netherlands, getting them to play for your team is critical to success in this region. And we saw it today. He scored the goal. And
Koulibaly, of course,
huge
Ivorian
performance.
Ivory
from
Coast, now Cambodia. And I'm all for it, boys. I'm all for playing
Me
for your
too.
adopted homeland. He's been there now for a while. I'm sure he feels his place, his country. They've taken him in with open arms. I am completely for this kind of thing. I think it's a great testament to kind of how football can unite worlds and unite cultures. I'm absolutely a big fan. I'm a big fan of it because I think it's changing the Asian region as well. And hey, it gets them a huge draw and a huge performance for Cambodia.
And they were unlucky not to win this match. I feel like, just a little bit of unfortunate goal that they allowed in the end. But that is a wrap on match day 1, guys. And that is that.
Yeah.
Final
Fun
thoughts.
fact. I have a fun fact.
What's your fun fact?
What's your fun
Mr.
fact?
Koulibaly played for a club team that was formerly known as National Police FC, now known as the Ministry of Interior FA. I suspect that stands for Football Association. But tremendous team names, very menacing, very, very menacing team name. I don't want to mess with them.
That's another exciting fact.
He knows how to put the ball in the interior of the goal,
net.
Roy. Of the net.
Yes,
There
you
go,
guys
right?
go.
He
There
is
you
the
guys.
minister of
Policing-
interior. Yeah.
They'll be policing their box.
There you go. There you go.
Yes.
There
And
you
on
go.
that note, I think that's a good place to end this episode. But for those of you
Good.
enjoying these videos, please subscribe to the channel. Keep watching the ASEAN Championship. We'll be bringing you coverage of the tournament, and go ASEAN football, Southeast Asian football.
Just the first day, boys.